there is an ownership problem in English football.
It's payroll time. There's the need to be afraid. At payroll time, we have no cash and we fear a raid.
1983, we need to move on and get a better owner who's more suitable for this club.
I support Reading Football Club, and I became a supporter because I got taken to a game by my dad when I was about 9 years old.
I'm an AFC Wimbledon football supporter, have been a man and boy since 1977.
I basically work with a big group of volunteers to try and help change the future of football.
We finally got to play a game, a playoff game, up at Manchester City Stadium. I was there. I was actually in plaster because I had an ankle operation, so I couldn't physically stand up. So I was in a wheelchair, recovering. And we won the game. We won on playoffs, and yeah, everybody else was jumping around everywhere, and I just started crying.
I mean, I can give you examples of scoring 2 goals, being 1-0 down against Wolves in 1997 and coming back and scoring in the 92nd and 96th minute or something like that. Memories like that, they stay with you. Winning promotion to the Premiership.
Given the chance again, I do it all the same, but either way, I'm all...
Worst emotion probably was relating to the fact that Wimbledon as a club were basically torn apart by decisions away from the actual pitch, and authorities made a decision that forced the club that we knew and we loved and I'd gone to as a boy to go and be allowed to play somewhere completely different.
Recently, I'd say that the worst experiences of being a Reading fan. Being relegated is always crap, but when your club is facing an uncertain future, in our case a really uncertain future, then it's brought with it quite a few lows.
Which destroyed the fans' feelings and faith and belief, just because of the whim of a business person who didn't really know or didn't really realise how he could do things with his appropriate asset.
A football club is like a hub. It's where people go on a weekend, and that kind of town connection.
Football is a social interaction that millions and millions of people do on a regular basis between April and May of every single year.
The football club itself has been going downhill in terms of its ownership ever since Sir John Medeski, who is highly thought of, has made a huge difference to our football club. You know, he's from Reading, he took us to the Premier League, and under his tenure he made a massive difference to the way the club was run. It was known as the Reading Way.
You have a new TV deal that's worth £6.9 billion. That is really centred around the top clubs in the Premier League. Now, the issue in football in the UK is that there are football clubs, professional football clubs, that go far down the pyramid. There are 144 professional football clubs, and they're all at the centre and heart of their community.
He managed to convince some overseas business people, Norwegian business people, to buy the club, and he convinced them that there was an opportunity for the club to be able to play in Dublin, and that's how they were going to make their money, which was based on absolutely nothing of any particular correct substance. When they found that out, they then realised that they couldn't make any money back, and the club then was relegated to the lower division below, which meant that the opportunity to make the millions from the Premier League television rights were not there.
The amount that goes to the EFL, the level below the Premier League, is currently around 13%. So, which is tiny, obviously, when you talk about the 6.9 billion.
We don't want someone with an ego. We want someone who cares about the club, what it means to the local community, that respects the history. We're one of the oldest clubs in England, let alone around the world.
So, I mean, obviously the biggest problem in football is this overspending on players' wages and the kind of determination to push yourself up. There's a siren call of the Premier League.
He has spent, I don't know what the exact figures are, but it will be, you know, in the hundreds of millions. And he hasn't seen the results that he wanted from it, and he's lost interest.
There are others. The owners and directors test is completely flawed. So who actually becomes an owner of a football club? There are some rules. I don't recall the last time we've seen notes from any of those meetings where those things have happened and those decisions have been made. There's no transparency.
As a result, we started our own club, and we started at the grassroots that everybody should have to do so. And we worked our way up, and it only took 9 years. And in 9 years, we got ourselves back into the Football League.
I think that some clubs around the country have made a really good job at involving fans. However, a lot of owners are pretty detached from the fan base. And I think that a lot of fans have also, you know, a lot of them have craved for that Premier League football, for example, that top flight football. And for me, I can only talk from a Reading fan, I think it's overrated, you know, and I think clubs like us, I'd be happy being in the Championship, even League One, as long as we're around, as long as we're sustainable.
And we are now fighting as a supporters, fan-owned club, in control of our own destiny, to keep that club in the way it is and show that you actually can have that type of organisation fighting against the multi-million pound run foreign business, foreign government owned organisations and still thrive.
When a club goes into administration, all the businesses that were connected with that club go bankrupt. That's the bottom line, because they are getting at maximum 1p in a pound.
If you get absolutely nowhere as a team and you as an individual feel that you have no engagement, I'm sure, sadly, if you spoke to many supporters amongst the other 90 clubs in the Football League, apart from AFC Wimbledon, they would tell you that they don't feel that they have any kind of buy-in, any kind of ownership and engagement with their own football club.
Where fair game belief, the difference should happen, is that you should start rewarding clubs that are well run. So clubs that actually do this remarkably stupid thing, which is budget sensibly, not spend more than, and the UEFA absolute maximum recommendation is 70% of your revenue on players' wages. And as I've just said, in the Championship, routinely clubs spend over 100%.
The issue you got right now is that the Premier League clubs, or the clubs that have recently been in the Premier League, are all essentially like pigs around a trough and trying to get in as much money as they can possibly get.
Right now is driving the club into the ground through really bad advice, I think, from the outside, through people with vested interests like super agents.
And the reason why the players don't suffer is because there's other ridiculous rule that exists, which is the football creditors rule, which means that when a club goes into administration, the people that are guaranteed to get their payment are the football players.
Can't buy a player because of the embargoes. At kick-off time, it's hard, but when you've got Young.
And he's taken the club from where it was at in the Premier League to right now, as we speak, joint bottom of League One.
Playoff loss.
Relegation to League One.
FFP.
Sobodayski Stadium.
We would either have to bring in an independent arbitrator, which is what has recently been, after lots of work behind the scenes, has recently been proposed, to actually come in to be able to then actually order the football clubs the way they actually need to behave. But you could also state that within the makeup of any particular ownership of any particular organisation, the supporters groups themselves have to be mandated to have a specific engagement in the ownership of the club.
Yes, so at the moment we're in conversations with a couple of clubs. So Swindon Town, we're having a lot of talks with them right now about how they've got a new ownership structure. So we're looking at how they can actually help with fan engagement, but more importantly about how their financial structures are and what they can look to do to improve.
If there was no independent regulator for football, you're just going to get more and more clubs like Reading coming forward. We're just an example reflective of the wider problem.
The clubs that are most at risk, I could list dozens. I will go with Sheffield Wednesday, Reading, Scunthorpe, Southend, who else can I think of? West Bromwich Albion.
And the list of clubs with owners that are bringing times of doom. Wasn't that it's us, but next there could be you.
Actually, it's about the communities of Macclesfield, the communities of Wimbledon, the communities of Taunton, these communities of Aberystwyth or anywhere, and I've deliberately chosen some places there around England and Wales which are not the hotbeds of football.
So two things are set to happen with the independent regulator, one of which is an oversight of football's finances, and the second one is a state of play survey for football, which will judge how football clubs are actually performing, so and holding to account on things like financial sustainability. But we'd hope also equality standards, community engagement. Fan engagement is another one that the regulator will include.
This is all about getting an owner who's going to be a steward of the club. It's not his or hers, it's their stewardship, and I think a lot of owners forget that.
The clubs who own whatever they own need to actually realise that without the fans, it's a cliche, but without the fans, without the people coming through, without the generational people, they are absolutely nothing.
But the fact is we are in this situation, so what does he do about it? He needs to sell as soon as possible.
And if you go to a stadium like the Emirates or the new Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, whatever, and just feel like you're some kind of commodity, that 6-year-old boy that's doing that isn't going to get that passion. That 7-year-old kid that gets taken by their father to shut him up on a Saturday afternoon, as I was 40-odd years ago, is not going to engage like that, and they're not therefore going to take their wife and their children and so on and so forth, and generations will be lost from the game.
Die young, get the hell out of our club.
It's often run by individuals who in the end can bring a whole club and its community down.
Sell the Royals. Sell